I'm not going to back down from them one bit. I will answer all of these senators' questions, but this will not be a process tried in the media. I don't answer to anyone in this group. None of you, not to that camera at all. I answer to President Trump.
Surrounded by reporters and uncomfortable questions, former Fox News host and Donald Trump scandal-riddled defense secretary nominee, Pete Hegseth, became visibly triggered into a full-blown MAGA meltdown, which ended with Hegseth ranting and raving and pointing into a Fox News camera, of all things. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we got several clips to talk about in this video, and we're going to start actually with the biggest one first. But before we get there, just as a reminder, I know if you follow this channel, again, please like and subscribe, but you are familiar with Pete Hegseth. He is a decorated combat veteran. He is a former Fox and Friends weekend co-host, again, second string even for Fox. He is someone with absolutely no administrative or command experience of any meaningful degree in the military, and yet because of his telegenic appearance, Donald Trump tapped him to be his nominee to lead the Department of Defense, to command 3 million U.S. soldiers and a budget of $900 billion. And yet afterwards, we learned all sorts of things about Pete Hegseth. He's been credibly accused of sexual misconduct. He has many people under non-disclosure, at least one person under non-disclosure agreements. He himself is apparently under an NDA or involved with an NDA involving a former veterans organization he used to lead and reportedly mismanaged. He has had struggles reportedly with alcohol, according to former co-workers, that make him a bit of a liability. And so he is very much at the heart of multiple scandals. And reportedly, a lot of this isn't anything that Donald Trump knew when he nominated him, which just makes Trump look like the idiot he is, because he should have vetted his nominee before making him the nominee. I digress. Pete Hegseth is apparently on tour in Washington, D.C., trying to shore up support because all he needs to do is lose 4 Republicans in the Senate, and he can't get confirmed to this particular position. So he's basically knocking on doors, soliciting support from senators, and he's surrounded by reporters. And again, we're going to play this clip first because it's very unhinged. It's also ironic, and then we'll get into it and all the others.
And I'm proud of what I fought for. I'm not going to back down from them one bit. I will answer all of these senators' questions, but this will not be a process tried in the media. I don't answer to anyone in this group. None of you, not to that camera at all. I answer to President Trump, who received 76 million votes on behalf and a mandate for change. I answer to the 100 senators who are part of this process and those in the committee. And I answer to my Lord and Savior and my wife and my family. I'm proud to be here. And as long as Donald Trump wants me in this fight, I'm going to be standing right here in this fight, fighting to bring our Pentagon back to what it needs to be.
What have your conversation?
So again, visibly triggered and pointing into, I don't answer to anyone. I don't answer this camera or anyone. Well, it's ironic because as you can see here, it's a Fox News camera. So it's kind of funny that he's ranting and raving and pointing his finger at his former colleagues at Fox who are there also asking questions. Number one, so that's, again, ironic. Number two, also ironic because it turns out that members of the media, reporters, are voters. I don't know if you know this, but it turns out that reporters, Fox News reporters, CNN reporters, CBS reporters, every single person in that room who is an American citizen and above the age of 18, and unless they're a convicted felon, they have the right to vote, and they probably did vote. They are citizens just like U.S. senators, just like U.S. presidents, just like Pete Hegseth himself. So when he says he doesn't answer to the press, not in a top-down hierarchical sense, in the sense that the press does not employ him, but the press not only represents constituents as well, they're supposed to be the conduit by which viewers and voters, learn things about politicians. They themselves are also voters. So in multiple dimensions, he does answer to people. He does answer to reporters. Again, he doesn't have to take orders from them because they're not his boss, but they're American citizens, most of them, and eligible voters. So that's kind of strange that he would say that. Number three, it's also kind of strange because imagine during the 2024 election campaign, when Hegseth was still working at Fox, imagine a different situation where Vice President Kamala Harris was standing in front of cameras. And at the time, you may recall, so many people, including Pete Hegseth, including Fox News, complained that Vice President Harris didn't do enough interviews, that she was shy, camera shy, that she didn't, sit down for the press. Imagine if she had popped off like this and said, I don't answer to you. I don't answer to anybody here. I answer to Joe Biden. I answer to President Biden, my Lord and Savior. How would Fox and Pete Hegseth have responded? They'd be like, no, of course, that's ridiculous. That's so elitist. It's so absurd. The press represents a component of the people. You are supposed to answer press questions. There is supposed to be a relationship there. But because now it's Pete Hegseth and the shoe's on the other foot, apparently the press plays no role whatsoever. Well, obviously, the real, in addition to just being simply hypocrites, Pete Hegseth is too fragile to handle the press. That's the point. But the other thing is, I answer to President Trump. I answer to 50, and then he corrects himself because he's like, okay, all senators. Well, ultimately, you're supposed to answer to the American people. And if the American people have questions about your competence, your experience, your scandals, your moral fitness for office, your administrative, experiential fitness for office, then yeah, one assumes you should probably answer the damn questions, Pete. And one expects that the American people probably believe you owe them answers to these questions. But there are other clips I want to play. Prior to this meltdown, there are other moments there, again, where he's surrounded by people answering questions. So we'll play some of these clips as well from a very tone-deaf and very scandal-ridden and very unqualified Pete Hegseth.
Do you think you can convince Joni Ernst? You on the issue of alcohol?
Oh, we've had great conversations about who I am and what I believe, and frankly, the man I am today, because of my faith in my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and my incredible wife, Jenny, right here. I'm a different man than I was years ago, and that's a redemption story that I think a lot of Americans appreciate, and I know from fellow vets that I've spent time with, they resonate with that as well. You fight, you go do tough things in tough places on behalf of your country, and sometimes that changes you a little bit. And by the grace of God and my Lord and Savior, I had an opportunity to come on up out of it and do great things with great veterans organizations that fought for vets, that fought for reform at the VA and for war fighters.
Reportedly, many of the people who used to work with him for Concerned Veterans, a veteran organization that he used to lead, they would disagree with his characterization of that role, that he led them well and that he worked well with them. Again, the reporting around this is pretty scandalous. So I'm not sure why Hegseth would walk into it that way. But
and at the Fox News channel, to advocate for those very same causes.
Yeah, and by the way, I was a Fox News host. Please. Doesn't that obviously make me qualified to be, the effective second in command of the United States military after the president himself? Come on. I hosted the week. I was a second string Fox Newser. What an idiot. Here's another clip.
Will you support the release of that whistleblower report for the concern?
It's very interesting what the press likes to dub a whistleblower report, which some others might clarify as a email from a disgruntled employee, one might say.
So would you support the release of that?
Do you think you can convince Joni Ernst?
Will you support the release of that whistleblower report for the concern?
It's very interesting what.
So they're, again, talking about a whistleblower report, which is something I alluded to before this clip, from Concerned Veterans for America, the organization that Pete Hegseth used to lead. Well, if you're into transparency, if you're fully aware of the competent job that you did, why aren't you supporting the release of the report? And again, imagine Pete Hegseth, former Fox News host, being on the other end of this microphone, the other end of this camera. Wouldn't he be asking the same damn thing if it were a Democrat? And you see how how defensive Hegseth is starting to get on this. Well, it's interesting. You all call it a whistleblower report, but others would call it, an email from a disgruntled former employee. And then when Manu Raju from CNN asks him, okay, well, would you support the release of that? He won't even answer. He turns away and just grinds his jaw, visibly triggered. I'm not sure that this man has the temperament or the grit to lead the most powerful military in the history of the United States if a CNN reporter's question can trigger him so effortlessly.
This process has been a very good one, despite all the noise on the outside. Had a great interview with Megyn Kelly yesterday, and will continue to answer questions specifically to senators, who are the ones that deserve answers to every question they have. And in every office we've stood in, we've welcomed that opportunity. It has been a great week. It's a process that's ongoing.
So, according to Hegseth, all the noise is coming from the outside. Then he references a great interview he did with former Fox News host and MAGA Republican conservative Megyn Kelly, who is a member of the media. So I guess the media is okay then with Megyn Kelly. The rest of the media sucks, obviously. And then he's not going to answer questions from the media, right? Because it's actually only U.S. senators who deserve answers to questions. Well, why do U.S. senators deserve answers to questions? Well, presumably, when you get down to brass tacks, because they represent constituencies, right? They represent the American people. Well, maybe the American people deserve answers to these questions too, Pete. And the only way that that's going to happen is if you do it in front of a camera. So if you actually engage with the media. So again, he's getting tangled in his own hypocrisy, in his own selective standards, because obviously he can't withstand the scrutiny. So will Pete Hegseth pass confirmation? Again, the betting markets say no. There have been multiple Republicans who have expressed reservations about Hegseth. I mean, again, clearly on the merits, he shouldn't have the job, but that's never prevented MAGA Republicans from making Betsy DeVos Secretary of Education, whatever. Appointing people with specific qualifications has not been a frequent calling card of Donald Trump's, and certainly not now. But will he get the confirmation anyway? Again, I think as a general proposition, you shouldn't bet against, or you should not bet on Republicans standing up to Donald Trump in any meaningful respect. So it's certainly possible, but you can tell that he's nervous. He's clearly unraveling, which is why he had this meltdown, again, which ended with him wagging his finger in front of a Fox News camera and insisting he doesn't owe the press any answers or the public any answers, just Donald Trump. It's really all about pleasing Donald Trump. Really weird, despicable stuff from a sycophant and a very unqualified person. But we'll see how the confirmation goes. And I imagine he'll continue to unravel no matter what in the meantime. And in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.